See, this is why I think Hedron is genius. You didn't have this before, and it helps out Hex so much. This is why I love this and think the price is just going to skyrocket.
What's going on, guys? Boi Crypto here with you again, and today we are going to take a look at a project that is revolutionizing the way that you can use your Hex stakes, and that is called HEDRON. And stay tuned until the end, because I'm going to reveal my price prediction for this product, which can get to some pretty insane numbers. Hey guys, if you like hearing about new crypto products like this to invest in, please do like this video, subscribe to the channel as well, and hit the notification bell. I am also on Twitter. You can find me at Boi Crypto. So yes, to be familiar with what HEDRON is, you need to be familiar with what Hex is. And I assume if you clicked on this video, you might have a little bit of an inkling of the product called Hex. Created, of course, by Richard Hart. I'm not going to go into the details if you're not already familiar with Hex, but what I will do is refer you to a video I made a few weeks back called How to Stake Hex for Beginners. I will link it in the description below. Now, one of the few problems, quote unquote, I guess you could say, with Hex is the fact that part of the smart contract is that you stake out a certain amount of Hex for a time of your choosing. This could be 6 months, which would be pretty stupid, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, which is the maximum stake of 5,555 days. Now, again, I said quote-unquote problems because this is actually a feature and benefit of the Hex smart contract. And as long as you understand it, you're not going to end up staking more than you really meant to. However, and creator of Hex, Richard Hart, knows this, there are going to be occasions where you may need to emergency unstake if you had some kind of, well, emergency pop up in your life. Or, unfortunately, people could have their Ethereum wallet possibly get compromised where they hold those Hex stakes. Enter Alex McWhirter and his product, HEDRON, which at first the Hex community and really people at large didn't understand what the purpose of the product was. It was simply a free airdrop with whatever Hex stakes you already had. You were able to claim and or mint your HEDRON tokens simply by paying an Ethereum gas fee. But as Alex expanded the product and explained how it works in full, it showed the hidden value of it because you actually are able to get liquidity with your Hex stakes, which previously were there in perpetuity, and you owned the stakes and there was really nothing you could do about it. Now, Alex is in the middle of creating an even larger ecosystem outside of HEDRON that involves ICOSA as well. We're going to save that for another video for now, but the key here with HEDRON is to understand, again, is the liquidity that it adds to the existing Hex stakes that people have made that could be as long as 15 years. Now, as I was already mentioning, there are multiple ways to get HEDRON. Number one is if you are already staked in Hex, you will right now, at this very moment, be able to go to the HEDRON website, which I will show here and link down below in the description, and mint the current HEDRON that you have based on your Hex stake. There's a formula to figure out how much HEDRON you get per your stake, which involves the total of your Hex principal as well as the time that you staked out for. Obviously, the larger the principal and the longer the stake, the more amount of HEDRON you'll be able to get. Now, this is one way to get HEDRON. The other is quite obviously just buying it on the open market, which you can do via Uniswap, once again, right on the HEDRON protocol. Now, I personally am not giving any financial advice here, but I am an advocate for the mechanics of HEDRON. I love that it's creating this extra stickiness not only for Hex, but for creating Hex stakes. And I am interested in investing in HEDRON long term. I think that this is a great product to be investing in right at this moment as we are still in the midst of this bear market. But don't tell that to HEDRON because it has had great price performance over the last couple of months. That said, it's still only fractions of a penny, which is why I think it is a definite to invest in at this moment. I really want to get down to the nitty-gritty though and figure out the actual mechanics of HEDRON, how it works, so you know what it is you're getting into. So let's head over to the desk. We're going to explore all of the mechanics of HEDRON so you understand it completely by the end of this video, and I'm also going to show you how to buy it on the open market. Let's check it out.
Okay, guys, so here we are taking a look at the actual HEDRON protocol. This is just hedron.pro, and we're going to get into it here. So you can see, as already mentioned, take advantage of your Hex stakes maturity, trade it, borrow against it, get free liquidity. So that's really what we are talking about here. Now, right away, before we actually get into what Hedron is, you can see right at the top of the protocol where you can go ahead and click to mint your Hedron. And obviously what this is going to do is attempt to connect your MetaMask, okay? So what basically will happen, and mine is locked right now, is you would come down here, and any hex stakes that you do currently have, you would just see a list from, you know, the top one to the bottom one of each one of them, usually sorted, I believe, by when it was created. Trying to remember from when I actually see them displayed here, but it'll show you the principal, what you actually started with, and then the length, obviously, of the stake. All of the data will be right there for you, okay? Then it's also going to show you your current amount of Hedron that you can claim and or mint right there, all right? So depending upon how long you're already into the stake, it's usually going to be how much you've served already. And if you haven't served that many, or if it's a new stake, it's not going to be that much Hedron to claim. But if you're well into one and have been, you know, if you're a Hexagon OG, you probably already know how to do this and therefore aren't even watching this video. But if you're well down the line with a stake, you might have a substantial amount of Hedron to claim. You can see here it talks about a bonus. There's not going to be any kind of extra bonus for you at this point. That is referencing way back, I believe it was in March of this year, 2022, when you actually had the multiplier that started at 10x and went the whole way down to 1 over the course of some time. So that was obviously a great time to take advantage of any hex stakes that you did have to get your Hedron. So they'll all be right there. It's very, very easy to do. Obviously, you are just going to have to pay a gas fee for doing the mint, okay? So that's going to be right at the top of the page. So let's just go to the front page again of hedron.pro. And we're going to come down here and see what it is all about. So what is Hedron? It's a collection of smart contracts that live on the Ethereum and Pulse Chain blockchain. Hedron builds on top of Hex to allow stakers to mint and borrow Hedron tokens against their active Hex stakes. Hedron also allows stakers to trade their Hex stakes as NFT tokens on any compatible NFT marketplace. That is a big one. That is what we are talking about when we reference the liquidity to the Hex stakes. More on that later. Hedron has no admin keys and no kill switches. Just like Hex, Hedron is completely decentralized with zero counterparty risk. So, you know, we're talking a lot lately on this channel about real crypto, and I think products like this in DeFi are what, you know, really do highlight it, as you will see here. So how do I get Hedron? Hedron analyzes a Hex stake. This is what we were just kind of talking about with minting, and allows the staker to mint or borrow Hedron based on the amount of shares allocated into their stakes. If a staker emergency unstakes or otherwise ends their stake before minting their Hedron, they will no longer be able to mint Hedron against those stakes. So in other words, you must have an active stake to be able to mint it. Once you've ended the stake or the stake is over with, obviously there's no longer an opportunity to mint that Hedron. Instance Hex stakes, we're going to get into this in a moment. This is really one of the big major things you can do with Hedron. The HSIs with active Hedron advances cannot end stake until the advance is paid in full. Good accounting can still be used. The maximum amount of mintable or borrowable days is equal to the full term of the stake. We're going to get into what HSIs are. There are people out there I know that really would only even do Hex stakes from this point forward as an HSI rather than the I don't want to call it legacy, but the original way of doing a Hex stake on the Hex website. So we're going to get into that. How does Hedron supply relate to the Hex share price? Hedron is an inflationary token. Because the Hex share price only increases over time, Hex stakes will continually have less shares allocated to them. The net effect of this is that as the Hedron share price increases, the amount of mintable Hedron will decrease. This is similar in effect to how mineable, I thought they were trying to say mintable, mineable cryptocurrencies increase difficulty over time. So that kind of summarizes some of the things in better words that we talked about in the intro of this video. Down here is where it can look very complex. And I'm going to sum up this portion, which is referring to those HSIs, the Hex stakes instances, a little bit easier than it looks. But coming over here and just looking at how this would work classically for you, that's not what I wanted to do. Just there we go. Zooming in a little bit here. So coming over here to the right and the start of a native hex stake. So the way that this basically works is that you're starting your stake, obviously. You've got this is a better way of terming it, I think, a native stake. So you are then able to, as we already mentioned, mint your Hedron off of that native stake and receive Hedron token, where the bonuses we already covered, that has passed. And you actually can mint your Hedron from there. So that is a way to get involved in Hedron and also give you, cash on the side through Hedron with a stake you currently have. But the bigger thing here is these hex stake instances, all right? The HSI. So what you would essentially do is create a hex stake through the Icosa and Hedron website, all right? And we can get into actually showing you how to do that at another time. But what it actually is and allows you to do is borrow Hedron in advance. So let's say you make an HSI, a hex stake, which is, it's just like making one on the regular hex website, but you actually make a hex stake, and let's say it's a 10-year stake, and you're getting X amount of Hedron. Well, instead of the classical way of making a hex stake, where you're accruing that Hedron over the course of the stake, and it would be more wise to wait until later in your stake, I would recommend anyway, to mint that Hedron, because there's no point, like, what's the point of minting like 4,000 Hedron? That's like nothing, that's not, there's no real value to that yet. And you're going to waste the gas fee on doing it, and then you're just going to continue to mint your Hedron and wasting gas fees as you go. I would rather just wait until later to do it. But with an HSI, you will actually have access to the full amount of Hedron that you would have by the end of your hex stake, even if it's a 10-year stake. So let's say, I'm just throwing numbers around, I haven't actually done the math here, but let's say that you actually, by the end of a hex stake, would be getting 3 million Hedron. Okay, now, again, that's not a ton of real value yet, but down the road, and where we think Hedron may go price-wise, it will be. So you actually will have access to that 3 million Hedron tokens right away. You can actually borrow it, claim them right away, and use them. You will receive the Hedron tokens as you see here. Now, it will have to be paid in full, and it is a loan that you will have to pay back. So keep that in mind. But what this does is gives you that liquidity to be able to claim that right away for a number of different purposes. I personally wouldn't really want to claim it right away, but I don't see a reason to not do a hex stake from this point forward, now that we know this functionality as an HSI. You have that liquidity right away. And again, I think this is really good because if you do have a wallet that maybe was security compromised or something like that, and you want to sell the tokenized HSI, and that's what we're talking about over here. This is what's really important. Hex is beautiful. The thing that you can get caught in, though, is if you do some of these long-term stakes, you may have reason to sell the token of the stake. That is what Hedron is. And I think people hear NFT and they just kind of think of the crudely done crappy art. That's kind of all we've really seen with NFTs up until this point. This to me is one of the most tangible, real world uses of an NFT that we have seen yet, and why I do believe NFTs will be something over time. It's the contract. You're selling a verifiable contract, and that's what we're seeing right here is a tokenized HSI. You can actually sell your hex stake, the contract to that hex stake, using Hedron. So you can see how you would sell that NFT of the stake on the market, and then you have new ownership there. So I hope that is clear. You can totally see how it is adding massive liquidity into hex stakes, which were formerly not liquid at all, which is why I'm such a huge believer in this. I mean, I think that Hedron is going to be huge and one of the best buys in crypto right now in this bear market, even though, once again, Hedron's been pumping for months now. So let's read a little bit more down here. Hedron benefits the Hex ecosystem by further incentivizing staking. This is what I talked about in the intro. To mint the largest and most consistent amount of Hedron, stakers will have to stake larger quantities of Hex for longer periods of time. We already know with Hex that the larger the better and the longer the better. Get it? So the Hedron minting factor. Hedron is minted 1-to-1 in relation to particular Hex stakes allocated amount of B shares, 1 billion shares. Stakers can mint the amount once per day served within a stake. This can be done once per Hedron day at the end of the stake or at any arbitrary point in between. I talked about that earlier. Various bonuses are available which only apply to minting, such as the launch phase and AMR bonuses. There are no obligations for minting. If you have a Hex stake, you can mint Hedron with no risk to your stake. So again, it's just on top of Hex. You can mint it at any time. Again, I think it would be kind of stupid to just consistently mint, throughout the beginning and middle of your Hex stake. I would probably just wait until further into it because you're going to be consistently spending those gas fees. It's all up to you, though. I mean, everybody has different situations, and getting that Hedron may be valuable to you. We also, again, Hedron's not expensive right now, so wait till it is. The tradable stake factor. With Hedron, new Hex stakes can be created and wrapped inside a single-use smart contract. This is something we call a Hex stake instance, as we talked about there a minute ago, the HSI. These contracts can be tokenized, which mints the user an HSI NFT token that can be traded on any compatible NFT marketplace and later detokenized to give the new owner control of the Hex stake. So again, you're now able to trade your Hex stakes. Instead of stakers emergency in staking their stakes and dumping the Hex price, they can trade those stakes to other users who wish to hold them. See, this is why I think Hedron is genius. You didn't have this before, and it helps out Hex so much. This is why I love this and think the price is just going to skyrocket. Let's look at the Hedron borrowing factor. Users with Hex stake instances which are not tokenized are able to borrow Hedron tokens, which may be highly tax advantageous to the staker, while minting requires the staker to have served days within the stake in order to mint. Borrowing will mint all available Hedron regardless of served days in one lump sum. Hedron advances are between the staker and contract directly, no third parties. All payments, including premiums, are burnt by the contract. No party directly benefits from a Hedron advance aside from the staker. Bonuses do not apply to Hedron advances. So again, that's how you can use the advance if you so choose. Not something I really have interest in doing, but again, everybody's situation is different with how your stakes are set up, so it may be beneficial to you. Let's look at the liquidation factor. Hedron advances which go into default 90 or more days without repayment can be sent to auction by any other user of the Hedron protocol. When another user wins the auction by being the highest bidder, they will be able to claim the Hex stake used as collateral for themselves. The original borrower can bring themselves current with their payments at any point before their advance is brought to auction to prevent this. Hedron is designed to prevent liquidations by allowing users to pay in advance or by allowing full payoff of the advance. So once again, more and more liquidity. It's really the name of the game with Hedron, providing liquidity in all of these instances. Let's look at the staker first factor. The only way to obtain Hedron directly through the contract is to mint or borrow it against a Hex stake. There is no way directly to buy or exchange any other currency for Hedron. That being said, third-party tools like Uniswap or PulseX could be used to obtain Hedron without staking. We're going to show you how to do that in a moment. Fairly easy, especially if you already know how to buy Hex. The Hedron bonus factor. For the first 100 days of Hedron, and again, this is already passed, but the first 100 days of Hedron's launch, there will be a launch bonus phase. The bonus starts as a 10x multiplier and goes down from there. There's really no point talking about this now because it is over, but it was a very nice way to get a decent amount of Hedron at the beginning. An awesome tool down here is you can estimate your Hedron payout or mint calculator by putting in the B shares of Hex that you do have. Again, there's not going to be any multiplier at this point, so you can get rid of that, but kind of gives you an idea if you want an example of a Hex stake you are thinking about creating, what the Hedron is you will then be able to get. So nice feature there. And we have other FAQs at the bottom. In terms of actually buying Hedron, Very simple. It's just like if you would buy Hex, you're just going to connect your MetaMask right here. And assuming you have ETH and or USDC in that wallet, you can simply swap it for Hedron right there. Not anything complicated, and they have it right on the front page of the protocol. So I talked earlier about where I think Hedron could ultimately go. I see no reason this could not, I don't know why I'm using a double negative. I see every reason in the world that this, with what it's doing, which in my opinion is really revolutionizing Hex without even really messing with Hex. It's built on top of it. I think it's utter genius by Alex McWhorter. I see no reason that this would not 10,000x as well. I do see this being a nickel to 6 cent valuation at some point. At the time of this video, which might give you some insight into when I'm recording it. Actually, I don't even remember where we're at. I'd have to check. But Hedron was trading right at about 5 zeros and a 4, whatever you want to call that number. We've seen it as high as almost 5 zeros and a 7. And obviously, almost valueless whenever it first launched. So I think it is great, even if it is still pumping, to be accumulating Hedron right now. I will be doing it myself and have been doing it down into the 5 zeros and a 2 and up above there. So I would dollar cost average into this. I love it. And I think that it is very important for the continued and even more massive success of Hex.
So there you go, guys. There is how to invest and purchase Hedron right now on the open market, as well as the inner workings of it. I hope that you enjoyed. I think that anything that furthers products like Hex, which in my opinion are some of the best DeFi products for investing long-term that there are, and what crypto was really all about. The trustlessness, the open source code, the minting of your own coins, being your own bank. I love that Hedron adds to the stickiness of Hex, adds to the stickiness of the Hex stake, and provides liquidity in case you may have made a mistake with your stake or had a wallet compromised or something like that. In my opinion, we need more products like this in the DeFi space, and anybody who's creating things like this truly understands the purpose of crypto, which will only gain more adoption with these DeFi products and crypto as a whole. If you like hearing about newer products like this and how to invest in them, please do like the video. You can also subscribe to the channel. I very much appreciate it. Hit the notification bell. And you can find me on Twitter. I am at Boi Crypto. I want to personally thank all of you fellow Broke Boys for watching another one of these videos, and I will catch you in the next one.